Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for this update to my Reset 2022. At the toward the end of last year, I think it was, I had made a video talking about my plans and intentions for 2022, and I was calling it like a reset as opposed to a depth year because it's not really a depth year for me. And it was more just about being very specific with my intentions, having some practical action steps and resources in place, kind of, I don't know, trying to come at 2022 with some fresh energy, renewed optimism. So that's, I think, why I named it Reset 2022, Reboot, whatever you want to call it. I will link that video in case you want to watch that before watching this. The whole idea for me was that I was going to create what I would say were very kind of temperate intentions, nothing that would set me up for failure, and split them up into 6-month increments. So focus on a certain set of intentions for the first half of the year, and then add on to or move along to other intentions for the second half of the year. So yeah, this is a video where I'm going to just kind of let you know, since I'm midway between, I guess, my first set of intentions or the first half of the year, to let you know how it's been going. So I divided my intentions into categories. And the first category, physical health, this intention is one that I have been trying to cultivate for the entire year. And that is to just give myself at the very least, 15 minutes of physical activity for 5 days a week, no matter what that looks like. It could be walking, and it doesn't even have to be all at once. So however I needed to divide those minutes up in a day, but walking or some form of cardio or some form of stretching or yoga, weightlifting, whatever that looked like in terms of moving my body, that's what I have been aiming for. And I will say that more consistently than not, I've been doing a good 4 out of the 5 days, which to me is pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm hoping that as I move along, I can work up to 5 days. The next category is mental health. And this intention was one that, along with the physical health intention, I was hoping to cultivate it for the entire year. And that was to meditate for at least 108 breaths or beads a day on my mala, my prayer beads. And I gotta say, that one has not been working for me. And so I have decided to let go of that intention, at least for now, because what I discovered was that, sure, at the beginning of the year, I started off strong. And then it became like something that I just felt I had to do just because I had to do it, and not necessarily that something that I felt was helpful after I had done it. I completed the 108 breaths, and it was just like, okay, I'm done. And so I think, well, partly, probably the motivation and focus is not there, or just being in that headspace. And also, I think that really the best meditation that has worked for me, that I've been using, that I forget was the reason I started this practice to begin with as a form of meditation, is that it's been tarot this whole time. And so I feel like that's the form of meditation that has been by far the most successful, my daily practice with the tarot. and it's calming. It just puts me in a more relaxed state of mind. It just makes me happy at the start. So I find that in that way, I don't necessarily need the mala beads when I have the tarot. What I have come to learn is that when I do need my mala beads, it is for times when I am in or anticipate an anxious state. So, for instance, I tend to have anxiety when I'm driving or when I'm in the passenger seat while Matt is driving. I have been in quite a number of accidents, car accidents, that were not my fault, that were pretty serious. And luckily, I was unharmed, but that has created a lot of anxiety for me when it comes to having to drive. And especially in my area where traffic is bonkers, it only heightens my stress. And so I find that, well, I mean, lately, honestly, I haven't had to drive anywhere stressful, in any kind of stressful situation. Um, but I have noticed that having the mala beads with me to focus on while I'm in the passenger seat and Matt and I are driving somewhere that requires um, being on 495 or these crazy ass highways where you kind of have to be a little more aggressive on the highway, not careless, but, and Matthew is not careless. He's actually a great driver. But anyway, my point being that I just can't help but feel anxious. Just being in that atmosphere, being on those crazy ass highways where people are driving like dipshits. And so anyway, so I found that the mala beads have helped a lot in those instances. Speaking of tarot, the next category is tarot and divination. And for this first half of the year, one of my intentions was to learn the Thoth. And so I had purchased this book, Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot by Duquette, a recommendation by many, and then just using this little pocket version of the Thoth. And so you can see that the backs are the Ankh instead of the classic rose cross. And with this particular pocket version that I originally saw on Nina's channel from Shuffle Tarot, the color saturation is slightly different. Just seems to have like more of a purple hue to a lot of the cards, which I loved. So I opted to use this deck. And so, well, okay, so the Duquette book is okay. I find it dry. It is certainly informative. I find it dry, and which shouldn't have surprised me. It has a very kind of, I don't know, it's written in a very kind of academic manner, which is nothing that bothers me per se. I mean, I'm used to reading that kind of text from when I was in grad school. So but I think I think part of my problem is that on top of the fact that I just kind of find this book to be dry, I'm using the original work. I'm using the original Thoth deck. And these images just don't excite me at all. I will say, I really like the minors. I think probably because they are pippish. But on the whole, overall do not care for the majors or the court cards. So I think that has been kind of a hindrance for me. And I think that's what's been kind of providing a block for me to, I don't know, enjoy learning this. I mean, in the beginning I was, because, you know, when you're excited to learn something new, and it's not that I'm no longer excited to learn the Thoth. I just don't know if this is the way I should go about it. Because ultimately, when I think about it, learning the RWS, learning the Marseille, I learned off of decks that weren't those original works. I learned off of, I guess you could call them like clones or heavily inspired decks that really complemented the original themes of the deck. So the original deck. So I'm wondering if I need to do the same thing with this, that I maybe need to find a Thoth clone or a heavily Thoth themed or Thoth leaning deck in which the imagery pulls me a lot more and learn that way. So I'm still thinking about it. Yeah, I'm still thinking about it. But that is where I am. I, have started learning, and I think I've said before, like in a previous video, it's been really cool to now be able to make connections in some of the decks that I have that have those little nods to Thoth, where I couldn't do that before. So I feel like this is an intention that I do want to carry through. And it's never, my goal was never to be like, I want to learn the Thoth so that I can use the Thoth. I just want to learn it. And I don't find the Thoth necessarily overwhelming, overbearing, or intimidating or anything like that. I just don't think I've found quite the way to learn and enjoy what I'm learning. And I would like to enjoy what I'm learning. Another intention that I have with tarot is that I wanted to refresh my Marseille and practice the Marseille. So with that intention, I had this book in mind, the Marseille Tarot Revealed by Yoav Ben-Dov, and then using this deck, the Tarot Sirene. And I will say that this has been by far more successful than my Thoth studies. I have really been enjoying this, actually. And what I have done is that I have gone ahead and I have, here are the backs, very pretty. I've gone ahead and I have written details that I've learned from this book, certain key phrases or words that weren't previously familiar to me. I decided to just write them down on these cards. And so not only did that make this a lot more enjoyable for me, it also it facilitated my bonding more with the Tarot Sirene. And I have done some readings with this deck since, and they've been great. They've been great readings, and I really do feel like, yeah, this is my deck. I can call this deck my own now. It feels like we have now developed this relationship, and as I practice more with this kind of Marseille style of reading, I can add more if I see fit to these cards and just not be afraid to write on them and make this deck work for me. Another tarot intention that I set for myself that I intend to carry throughout all of 2022 is that I am to use only the decks that I currently had as of the end of 2021. Uh, and the exceptions would be, anything that I received this year that I backed in 2021. So, for instance, the Seams Tarot, I had backed that deck on Kickstarter last year, didn't get it until this month. So, that's an exception, right? Or any decks that have been gifted to me. Or should there be a circumstance where I want to use a particular deck, a new deck, for, say, one of the Three Girls, One Deck lives that we have planned, then I can do that if I want to do that. So I do have some exceptions, but on the whole, I am to focus on the decks that I already have. And I have several. And this has been going very well so far. I have been gifted some decks, and certainly I think that helps to kind of take the edge off of wanting to buy decks for sure. I haven't bought any decks so far, except for the 2 prototypes for my 2 decks, which is another exception. If I make a deck for myself, I'm going to use the deck because I made it, right? So aside from the 2 prototypes that I bought and a tarot gift to someone else, I have not purchased any new decks. And I've been feeling good. I don't feel deprived. I haven't really been white knuckling it. It is only March. Moving on to the creativity / wild card category. So the first half of this year, my intention was to finish my manuscript revisions, and that this would probably carry on into the second half of the year, where I would then pitch to agents or decide to self-publish. But at the very least, for the first half of the year, it was that I would finish my manuscript revisions of a novel that I've been working on for a few years now. And I had mentioned in the last video that I even hired like this accountability, creativity coach, to keep my ass on track. I was so serious about this. I was determined. And then what happened was I was, after a year, 2021, of not looking at the novel, coming back to it to refresh my memory, to have a read through and to kind of mark up the manuscript to see what it was that I needed to work on. And these were like the goals that I set with my creativity coach, and we had a deadline and everything. As I did that, I realized that I had outgrown this novel. I had outgrown it, and that ultimately it wasn't worth investing more time into this project. That was a very tough, large pill to swallow. That was very hard. And I have awesome friends who consoled me and tried to be encouraging and reminded me that I was not a failure. Because even though in my head, I know that the act of creating in itself is the reward, and any kind of effort in that vein is not failure. It's part of the process. It's part of learning. It's part of growing. I know that, but at that time, I just felt like such a failure. I felt like such a failure, that I had let myself down, that I had let others down. You know, the people who took time to beta read my manuscript and give me, and take the time to give me great feedback. And I just felt really shitty. And I talked to my coach about this. I told her what happened, and she was like the bestest about it. She was just, she understood, and she told me that I was really grieving for this project that had been so much ingrained in me since, you know, I first started it. And so the releasing of that, and I didn't really think about it that way before, that I was kind of grieving this project. And it was. And then, and she was saying that I needed to give myself that time, that I wasn't giving myself the proper time, and that I should allow myself that breathing room to be in it, and to grieve and to go through the process. And then also she said it was a time of decadence, that this is now a time where I can play. And so she suggested that I get myself just like an art book, or like a writing book, you know, just sketchbook, whatever, and that I would do whatever I wanted, whatever creative thing that I wanted in this book, and just play, and not strive for perfection, not strive for any type of end result or specific goal, to just play and indulge and be decadent about it. And my mind was blown. It's just not, I know that sounds so fucking strange, but it's this, something like this was not ever in, never a consideration. It's just never a consideration. And we talked about the reasons for that. We definitely unpacked the reasons why this was something that never occurred to me before. But anyway, I am trying to do this now. I've started, and you can see all my stickers, and I'm not going to, of course, share the contents inside, but it's been, and I haven't done too much, but what I have done has been fun. It is hard for me not to judge my own work. I am prone to, being, I don't know, perfectionist, I guess, and hard on myself. And so that's just been ingrained in me. And so trying to let that go has been, it's been really interesting, but I'm going to keep at it. So what does that mean for the kind of creative writing or the wild card category? To be determined. I will let you know in my next update, which I hope to have for you in June. So that will be the half-year mark. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you've stayed with me for this long, then thanks so much. And yes, so far it's 2022 has been shit. Let's not beat around the fucking bush here. And it's nice to have things to focus on. Okay, well, I hope that you are all doing well. And until the next video, much love and take care.